We spent the first 8 months of the Second World War digging holes in the ground to extend the Maginot Line to the Channel coast. Then, when the Germans poured into Belgium, instead of sitting in those holes and going bang-bang when the Germans got there, we drove on through Belgium to meet them, to the welcome and temporary delight of the Belgians. But we could not hold them and started falling back. From somewhere near Louvain, we began driving in convoy towards the Channel coast until the military police stopped us at a crossroads to allow movement the other way. We had been given no information about where we were going, other than to follow the vehicle in front, but when we were allowed to continue, we had no vehicle to follow. Looking backwards, I could see that I was in the leading vehicle of a convoy of 2. When, after some time, we had not caught up with the vehicle we were originally following, we stopped for a council of war. One day we found a quartermaster's truck that had been abandoned. None of us had had a bath or even a good wash for at least a week, so we stripped at the side of the road and redressed ourselves in brand new underclothes and shirts. Wonderfully refreshing. One day we found a quartermaster's truck that had been abandoned. None of us had had a bath or even a good wash for at least a week, so we stripped at the side of the road and redressed ourselves in brand new underclothes and shirts. Wonderfully refreshing. We helped ourselves, too, to his stock of bully beef and had a tin each to eat then and there. But even after about 3 days with nothing to eat, we could not manage a whole tin each. On a search such as ours, you have to travel with your eyes and ears wide open. So we moved by day and laid up at night, in barns when possible, and got what information we could from other troops and from the locals, but not much because ignorance reigned supreme. With no maps and no knowledge of the terrain, we could often only take our direction from the refugees. They too were moving away from the Germans, but sadly and forlornly, and there was nothing we could do to help them. At night, if we felt sufficiently clear of trouble, we took off our trousers and boots. One evening, though, I thought us less secure and gave an order that no boots nor clothes would be removed, and that we would take it in turns to be on watch for an hour each, so as to give the alarm if a swift departure seemed appropriate. The British soldier hates keeping his boot on when he is asleep, but that particular night they all kept them on without a murmur. Looking back, I see now that this was the point when I realized that I had come of age, as it were, and that my group had accepted that I was in charge and could make the decisions. I felt now that I had earned my stripe. By the time I married, 3 months later, I had 3 stripes and eventually 3 pips. We found our battalion eventually, but most of them didn't know who I was, where I'd come from, or why I was there. We queued for the best part of 2 days for boats coming to the mole. When German planes came over bombing and machine gunning, we spread out as far as possible, but sportingly returned as nearly as we could to our position in the queue. Remembering D-Day. Jack Smith joined the Royal Marines in 1942. 2 years later, he was taking part in D-Day. Jack's story. Eventually, we boarded the Maid of Orleans, in peacetime a cross-channel steamer. But now, it was pretty well standing room only. We sat on the deck forward, around a pair of Lewis guns, mounted on a stanchion, and tended by a bombardier R.A. We loaded his magazines with 1 tracer to every 5 ball to give the approved hosepipe effect. He brought down a Messerschmitt, and we callously cheered as it crashed into the sea. We cast off from the mole at Suro 600 and tied up at Dover at Ono 900, a long trip to circumnavigate the minefields. We got onto a train straight away, and were off. To Aldershot, somebody thought. But I awoke at 10 past midnight to find myself at Brecon in mid-Wales.